Good night, good morning, good afternoon. This is a glow hello for all the people around the planet, including the extraterrestrials. I'm Gloria Londono. How are you today? And I'm so excited to be here today because it's a long time I was not podcasting. So for the people that just starting to connect with me today, I'm Gloria Londono, and I'm a woman that like to help people to feel better. I'm a survivalist, and I had a tremendous uh, work through my years about healing because I went through a traumatic event in my life. I was kidnapped and held in captivity for 90 days in the dark when I was 25 years old. So it's been a long journey. It's like half of my life being trying to feel better, to overcome anxiety, to overcome a depression, to overcome a lot of stuff that comes with a complex trauma. And for 4 years, I was talking about depression, anxiety, PTSD. You can guys go to my podcast and you can see I have a lot of episodes there. But today I said, you know what? If I come back again podcasting, um, I'm gonna change the subject because I already did my part. When I started podcasting, a lot of people was not talking about depression, anxiety, and PTSD. And I can say that I was one of the pioneers to talk about it. And I get like exhausted, exhausted to a point like, okay, I need to stop. It was podcasting every single week, sometimes two podcasts a week, and you get overwhelmed. And I need a break. And after that, I launched my book last year about my story. About it's a memoir about hope, transformation, and forgiveness. And also, I got into fear. I had a lot of fear when my book launched and when my story was out there. I couldn't handle. I was like, oh my God, now people's gonna see my story. They're gonna see who I am and everything that happens to me. They're gonna criticize me. They're gonna judge me, etc. So I was in not in panic mode, but I was like, no, I don't want to talk about my book. I don't feel like I should talk about my book. And it was like overwhelming. And that adds more about, I said, I'm not podcasting and I'm not talking about my book. So I have my best friend, Kia Baker. I've been working with her for a long time with different projects. And she was like, don't stop doing podcasting because you're very good at it. And I said, I don't know, I don't feel I want it. And then she pushed in a very positive way, of course. And then I said, you know what? She's right. Why I'm gonna quit doing something that I love the most? So I've been working a lot about with the fear. I after that traumatic event, I had a lot of fear for everything. You can imagine how what are the smallest things I have fear for. And I was so hard on me because I couldn't understand why so much to transform that trauma. Why so much hurt? Why so much anger? And it was like things that I couldn't believe. And today I feel like, wow, like how much work I did that I feel in peace and I feel calm. I'm very happy right now in my life. And I said, I need to start podcasting. So today is my very first podcast after 1 year of reset. And I have a very special guest, and she always gonna be number one in my life. I also mention her in my book because she is a piece of key in my life. And I'm gonna introduce her. Her name is Kia Baker, and I'm gonna bring her in right now. And she's gonna introduce herself because nothing's better than her to introduce herself. So let's welcome to Kia to the podcast Unbreakable Life with Glory, the bilingual podcast. Hi, how are you?
Hello, I'm so honored to be here.
Thank you, Kia. I'm so nervous too. It's so weird because after 1 year not doing this, it's like you forget a lot of things. And but I know it's in me, and I said, you know what? Let's do it. And I'm so happy and honored to have you here today because you've been my coach and my guidance and the person who pushed me to do stuff that I don't want to do, and you convince me in some way that I can understand where you're coming from, and I'm so happy for that. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, you honor me so much. That introduction alone was just like I started tearing up. So if my makeup's running, that's what happened. But like honestly, I just know that you are the most incredible person and you're so incredibly gifted. And the people that you have helped with your podcast since it began has just been so many people. And now with your book, like you're my shining star. You're my first student at London Real Academy. And you are just amazing and brilliant. And to see everything that you've come through and you've overcome, even past the kidnapping and just like life with marriage and, you know, everything that you've been through and overcome and all the adventures that you've had since I've known you,
Yeah,
it's just incredible to see you back here, still going and still ready to add value to so many people's lives that have yet to discover you.
I know that, and a lot of people told me that, and I had fear. And today the episode is gonna talk about fear. Fear is for me the most powerful tool, and I didn't understand when I went through this traumatic event. I didn't understand how much fear I have to purge, how much fear I have, how much fear I have to understand to be able to overcome so many things, like so many things, like going back to my country, to have relationship with my parents, to launch my book, to be able to connect again with my daughter. And it's like so and so having the podcast and everything was so overwhelming. And when I asked for the divorce, I was like, oh my god, this is so much. I said, how many more things I need to feel just to be to learn. And then not too long ago, I said, oh my God, I know what is my mission. My mission is to talk about fear. And my mission is to help people to feel better and to make people to understand what is fear. So my next question is, Kia, what is fear for you?
Wow, that is a loaded question because, and I think I just want to say that this topic is so important because there's so many people living in fear right now today, and so many more people that will be for all sorts of reasons. And I think, in our space where we're doing podcasting and all of, coaching and public speaking and all of that kind of thing, we face a lot of imposter syndrome as fear. Or, for example, both of us, we have had to be strong enough to leave marriages, and that comes with its own fear, right? So I think I'm going to just be cliche with this to start and say that fear is fictional evidence appearing real. I mean, basically, it's fear is a sensation you feel in your body, but it's also a thought process in your mind. Okay. And so when you feel afraid, it starts with your thoughts because your thoughts create your feelings in your body. So when you start to have a spiral of thoughts that are untrue in a negative way, you will feel this sensation and then it's a spiral, right? So it could be self doubt. And a lot of times that's what it is. It could be feeling unworthy or undeserving or not enoughness, which there is an epidemic about, with people feeling like they're not enough. And so all of these root causes from our core wounds, from how we were raised, or stories that we were programmed with during our childhood years and even into our young adult lives, these thoughts and these thought programs create these wounds that then come back up when we're going to face something that we really want. And that's where, if you've heard of the term resistance, that's where that resistance come from. The internal resistance are these wounds bubbling up to the surface when there's something in front of you that you really want or you really don't want. And that's what fear is.
But also, Kia, fear is a very powerful tool, because also fear, it tells you where something is coming, like when you are in dangerous. So fear, it could be two ways. It could be is the alert for you to tell you that it is dangerous and you need to act, you need to move, you need to, think quickly what you're going to do. And the other fear is you imagine that fear, like you just mentioned, that you think that bad things are going to happen to you, what there's not even happening, and you're already assuming that's going to happen. So fear, it could be a very good one or a devastating one.
Definitely. You're absolutely right about that. I mean, think of it, and you hear this a lot of times if you listen to like thought leaders and scientists, but they will say, we have a negativity bias. Back in our prehistoric days and built into our DNA, we needed to know how to survive, and everything was trying to eat us. So
Right.
that fear kept us safe. So that in that way, fear can be an internal guidance system, just like you're saying, that will protect you when there's something that could go wrong. But again, fear can also be a motivator, right? So in those regards, fear can be really useful. So I think that's the important thing to understand, is to determine whether it's the imagined one that we talked about, the fictional evidence appearing real, or is it a warning system, and to know how to use that for your maximum benefit.
Exactly. So Kia, in all your life, what was the moment that you feel the most fear in your life?
Well, the truth is, I've been afraid a lot in my life. I had I had a lot of moments where I could be afraid. I think we all have. But I don't know. It's really a hard choice because I've had so many. Like, for example, I had a really difficult childhood, and I grew up in a household where I felt terrified all the time, all the time. I mean, from the time I was about 5 years old, to the time I went to private school, and then whenever I would return home, I was mostly afraid because I didn't know what was going to happen. So I was always in survival mode to just try to keep myself safe in an uncertain environment. And that was how I grew up. So I was very afraid all the time. Then I was afraid at certain points when I was in the military, or I was afraid when I went to private school and I was going to be living away from home. I was afraid. I think the divorces, I was really afraid when I got my divorces. But I would say, if I had to pick one, I think my childhood was the time I was the most afraid in my life.
And how that fear impact you in your life, and how you overcome it?
So I would say that the fear of growing up in an environment where there's constant uncertainty and threat of danger is it informs every aspect of your life going forward until you understand that the choices that you're making, whether it's for career or partner or anything in life, is being um, based upon your experience in that situation. So the first part for me was honestly um, wanting to be a better mother to my kids than I experienced sometimes, because sometimes I had a wonderful experience, and then there were other times where it was incredibly challenging. And so that desire to want to be a more constant safe haven for my children pushed me to want to heal. And a lot of that was therapy. A lot of that was reading books. And a lot of that was just the decision that I wanted to heal. The first step
Yes.
was this: I want to be better. I want to feel better on a daily basis. I mean, that fear that I experienced as a child resulted in eating disorders, resulting in bad relationships, resulted in toxic friendships, toxic career choices. And I don't want to make it seem like my life was so terrible, because I've been blessed and I have had a good life, but I certainly have had to overcome a lot of things. And so the other catalyst for my healing that made me, so that was the first level of my healing, because I think healing is a journey, right? We all know that. And so
Right.
there's evolutions in your healing. So that took me to the first part, was the birth of my first son. Then I had a traumatic experience with my mom around the age of 30, and I had to cut relations with her. And because of that, it was the catalyst for my second stage of healing from that. And so I went back to therapy, because I hadn't been in therapy for a few years. And I went back to therapy and I started painting. So art as therapy, or a creative hobby. Some of the female veterans that I talk to on my other podcast, the Female Veterans Podcast, they do gardening, like writing, making plays, making books, like creative hobbies that were an outlet. I
Mm-hmm.
journal. I've journaled my entire life, since I was, I think, in middle school, or maybe around fourth grade. I started journaling and writing. So that has always been super, super cathartic for me in processing and dealing with the pain of my upbringing, because the fear is part of the pain. And then the last leg of my healing journey, which brings me probably to the current times, actually is twofold. It was relationship related. The first one was my my divorce from my kid's father, the long-term relationship, the longest relationship I'd ever been in, and certainly the one that I thought I would be in my entire life. And
Mm-hmm.
the relationship from one day to the next was over. It was sudden. It wasn't like a long thing. I thought I was happy one day, and the next day I was like, I have to leave this man.
Right.
So that just catalyzed my desire to learn. And I, of course, went to therapy. I went to a relationship therapist with him, and I went to private therapy on my own. So I was like double dosing on therapy.
Right.
I then started reading everything, all the books on self healing, and then watching all the YouTube videos and listening to the early days of podcasting and just listening to stuff and just absorbing all the information that I could. And I learned about so many forms of healing. And then decided, I decided that I wanted to shift my paradigm after hearing Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Mm-hmm.
And I went down that path. And then after some time, I felt like I was really evolving in my healing journey. I got into another relationship. I thought this relationship was going to be it for me, and it failed. And that forced me to take a look at what was left, because it's never just them, right? It's always,
Right.
it takes two to tango type of thing. So I was looking at, where did my attachment wounds and my core wounds play a role in this relationship coming apart? And that took me to the present. So then I dove back into therapy. I dove back into learning about somatic work and triggers and being triggered and how to resolve my triggers, and like just so much deeper layers of deeper healing. And that brings me to the current time. So I guess that long answer was to say that I'm not done. I'm still
Of course
healing.
not. So, Kia, I want to go back to your childhood because I know
Yeah.
a lot of people relate to that story. What
Mhm.
was the sensation? Because you said you have a lot of fear growing up. So, what
Mhm.
was the sensation of that fear and why you have fear? Like, what exactly you feel and what you was like feeling it and also imagining, or both?
Okay. So the sensation that I felt in my body was tension, a tightness. In fact, they used to tease me because my shoulders would be up really high, like I had no neck. And I have neck problems and back problems because of the years I spent like this, right? There was so much tension. My body was so tight. I had the sensation of wanting to be invisible. I just didn't want to be seen. Um, and I would feel like um, it would start in my stomach or around the solar plexus, and
Mm-hmm.
it would be just this churning feeling in a way. And then I would feel it in my head, where everything would start to feel like it was moving and then becoming distant, which a lot of you may identify with that feeling of dissociating. And so I was very dissociated a lot of times. And the reason why, quite frankly, was I had a stepfather who was terrifying and abusive. And I think they did this study not that long ago. Don't quote me, but you can do your own research and find it, I'm sure. And it was talking about the single highest predictor of child abuse in families, and it was having a step parent.
Mm-hmm.
And so and not to say that my mother was completely innocent, she was struggling with her own mental health issues and inability to regulate her own emotions. So, because he was a lacking empathy, we'll say, and she was emotionally reactive and full of anger, there was a combustible cocktail of, you could look the wrong way, you could say the wrong thing, you could breathe wrong, and you didn't know what was going to happen to you.
So
And
it was for little tiny things you never you what could be a
you don't
big
know.
thing.
Yeah, you don't know what's going to set somebody off. And the response was swift and full of rage and um violent. And as a small child, these are people that you love, so it's a very confusing thing, right? So
Yes.
there were moments in my childhood where I was doted on, and like, I mean, I don't want to vilify people, but there were times where I was told, you're the best. Like, this is terrible for my siblings, but this is just a true story. I was told, you are the best and brightest of all my children. Like, you can do anything. You can go so far in the world. You are the smartest, most beautiful, talented. I mean, the beautiful part didn't last it didn't make it through my teenage years. But like, when I was a small girl, I won an academics medal, which is how I got accepted into this private school that was, very abundant. And I was just made to feel like I was just the most amazing thing. But at the same token, um, my stepfather he would sort of, if him and my mother fought, the way he got back at her was through her kids.
Of course, that
But
happens to me.
but physically, like being
Hmm.
physically violent to her kids when she would be sleeping. So she didn't even know for years.
Of course. That happens to me. And some now that you mention a lot of stuff, it reminds me also my childhood. I also was in fear for many, many years,
Mhm.
since very young. And my sensation was I want to escape. I don't want to be here. I hate them so much. I can't stand my father. I remember my father coming at like at 5 p.m. and my heart like was like that. And I said to my mom, my father's coming again. Like for me, I thought that he lived in the morning and I wish he never come back. And he come back and to make a problem to my mom, he make the problem to me. So my mom get pissed off him. So they fight and he have an argument of something. So he can um, load my mom with all the BS that he's coming from outside.
Mhm.
So I had that. So I tried to escape when I was 16. But also the other day I was thinking about the all that things that I went through in my childhood. It was a training for me to be able to survive the kidnap, because the kidnap situation, it was something very similar to, because my
Wow.
father was very like don't let me go anywhere, so I wanted to escape. So when I was kidnapped, of course I wanted to escape. But the difference of both of the two of those experience, that the kidnap teach me that I didn't have no choice, that I have to deal with the situation, be there, and stop stop panicking, because I was panicking the entire time, and to a point that something said, you need to accept to see what we're doing or what you're gonna do. And that then when I started to understand about fear. Okay, I'm in fear, but I need to find a way for me to survive. So I started to create stuff, or not starting to create, but things starting to happen to me for me to learn to survive. Because when you go through a kidnap situation, very rarely you are trained to go through that.
Right.
Very rarely. Only my friend that I interviewed, that he was kidnapped for 2 years, he was a humanitarian, and those humanitarian, they train them if they kidnap them how to behave. I didn't know how to behave, but I have the survival mode. I have all my tools to survive. I just had to calm down, and everybody's intelligent in that situation. But people forget that. People think that when you are in fear, you get stupid, or you get like you don't know what to do. You can be like that in the moment. But that's why we are here to talk about the fear, for people to start training the fear, that it's okay to have fear, is to feel to it's okay to recognize the fear, but also say, okay, I feel the sensation. There's something coming. There's probably something is going to happen to me. I'm going to be in alert. Instead of panicking and reacting like crazy, just going to be in alert. So that way I learned being, when I was kidnapped, be in alert. But also it comes the other dark side of that, that after they release me, I stay connected to that sensation, survival. So I feel that all my life until a year ago, I was living my life in survival mode. It is very, very tiring to be like that. What do you think about that?
I agree. I agree with you. I think many, 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 many of us are just in
Yes.
survival mode and don't even know it. I know I was. And that's one of those things. Like I lived my whole childhood feeling in survival mode. And so that was normal. for me. And I wasn't just in survival mode at home with my family. I was in survival mode at private school too, because I was different.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to be on guard. I mean, I think after a few years, I kind of like settled into private school, and it started to more and more people like me got there. But that didn't mean that I was cool with them either. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was just an odd girl in a space where it took some time for me to find my footing. But then in the military, so my veteran brothers and sisters will know that you are often in survival mode all the time. That's how you live your life. If you're in a war zone, you have to do a job though. You have a job in that
Yes.
war zone. You're not necessarily like people think of wartime and they think you're on the battlefield with guns and everyone's doing that. It's no. I was a pharmacist. Like, but if you're in a war zone, you still have to go to work and do your job, but you do have the threat of, you know, bombs going off or an attack
Yes.
or like anything that can happen to you, but you have to go to work business as usual. So it's your day and night there in that space. So you are in constant survival mode. And there are some schools of thought that say that's where PTSD comes from, is
Yes.
constantly living in survival mode from these traumatic experiences. So definitely I understand that feeling of being in survival mode. And that also affects your relationships and who you choose to partner with, because oftentimes you are so used to being in survival mode, you'll select partners that keep you there.
Right. I'm
Mhm.
gonna post this comment for Lily. Hi, Lee. She said, "Traumatized people do not want to be safe. They want what they are used to." I'm gonna um, I'm gonna say something about this. I don't agree with that what she said, because I was traumatized, and at the beginning I didn't know how to deal with that, but I always wanted to feel better. And probably a lot of people, uh, they can say, no, I don't want to work this trauma that I have. But I think mostly people, they want to feel free. They want to feel happier. They want to release. They want to be able to live in this planet, because this planet alone is very challenged to be here. Imagine this planet the way it is with a trauma. So I don't agree what she's saying. I respect your opinion, but I will say that the person that are traumatized, I right there in the very deep of their soul, they want to be free. They want to be healed. They want to be better. What do you think about that, Kia?
Well, I can say that I definitely understand where she's going with it, because that, for example, an easy example is, and I'm talking about dating because I'm doing a series on dating after divorce, so on the on Hot Topics Live podcast. But when you pick a partner and it's like the same partner but a different face, that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what she means. Like, you've been traumatized, so it's informing the way you choose your partners, and you keep repeating that because that's what you're used to, and you think that that's what you want. But it's not really what they want. That's the thing.
No.
It isn't. It
Yes.
isn't what they really want. It's what they're used to. So that's what they think that they want, and they don't know how to be. And so I have dated some people, which I'm pretty chill. The relationship didn't work out because I'm too nice. If you have a problem with someone being too nice or because it's boring, it's because you're used to chaos.
Yes.
You're used to toxicity. So because I don't come with toxicity, we're not going to work out, because that's what you want. That's what you're used to. So I feel like what Lily is saying is kind of along those lines.
Right.
And in that regard, I can agree, but I also agree with you that I don't think people really want that. That's not what their
No.
soul, what their heart really wants. They really want to be in a healthy, committed relationship. They just don't know what that looks like, because it's either never been modeled to them, or they've never experienced it, or they have no idea how to heal their wounds. They haven't begun that journey.
Yeah, but after that trauma, we have traumas, but
Mhm.
behind that trauma, big or small is trauma, there's always a mission. Because if
Mhm.
you overcome that, you can teach other people with the same trauma.
Yeah.
And that's the purpose. That's the purpose of the traumas. The traumas make you grow. It's like fear. When you feel fear, you're growing because you're
Mhm.
feeling and you acting and you're learning how to survive that situation that is in your life in that moment. So going back to the military, those people, I guess, they are trained to be in fear and they are trained to deal with fear. Right, Kia, or no?
Yes and no.
Okay,
We are very well trained, but I don't recall ever having a class called like mitigating fear or overcoming fear, right? Like we're very well trained to handle situations. We are not well trained to handle emotions.
it should be that class in there because there will be more. It's smarter to be in a situation that requires, when you
Yeah.
are in an environment where there's a lot of fear, like I can say because I'm a survivor. When you are in a lot of fear at the beginning, you cannot comprehend what's going on, but it get to a point that you have no choice. So I was thinking maybe because they are very well trained, the military, you would think like they are also trained to be managing the fear. Like, okay, we are in fear, but we are more is intelligent, smart to know how to deal with this situation.
So you get put in situations where you learn, you adapt. And that
Right.
is a lot of it. So I don't know if it's been a long time since I was in the military. So if
Hmm.
things have changed, I can't speak to that. So anyone who is currently serving or who has served more recently than 30 years ago can
Right.
probably offer you more information. But I will say that we learn by doing. So you figured out, or you maybe had a buddy or someone in leadership who guided you
Right.
through how to handle things, or you figured it out on boots on the ground. So I love that saying boots on the ground, but really I'm a sailor. So
I have a I have I
yeah.
have a question for you about what we're talking right now. Like from your experience working with the female veterans, how
Mhm.
does fear manifest in people in who have faced extreme challenges?
How does it manifest in them? You mean when
Yeah.
they're facing the challenge?
Yes.
Well, it manifests in all different ways, but I think in the military, it comes from the threat of, you know, dying. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Or in certain situations, like for example, when I went to boot camp and when you and I think it was Arjun was the guy who was the medical, the doctor who got kidnapped. We
Arjan,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
He's a
So
humanitarian.
yes. So I remember talking to both of you, and I was trying so hard. Like I was so like, oh my God, listening to your stories. And I remember thinking, how can I relate to what they're saying? And I thought the closest thing that would come to, and is not even close by any stretch, but would be like boot camp, because you're in a place you can't leave. And it's a very shocking experience, like because when you get there everything is created to strip you to, at least it was when I went through, was to break you down to build you back up into the sailor soldier, you know, that they want you to be, marine, whatever they want you to be. And your first day at boot camp is terrifying. Like you're disoriented, all of your belongings that they told you you could bring get shipped home. They cut your hair. They like, you're getting screamed at, like everything's so disorienting and you're
Right.
afraid.
That's a shock.
It's a shock. So you're in this situation, you're shocked and you're afraid. And that's the introduction to being in the military. So they start there by just dropping you into it and getting you accustomed to functioning while you're afraid.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think a lot of people dealt with the fear by not dealing with it. So in the military, there's a big drinking culture, right? So a lot of people go drink, lots of
Mhm.
people smoke cigarettes, you know what I mean? Lots of people work out, but people have their ways that they deal with the stress of the job.
Right.
And I think that a lot of people, especially doing the interviews that I have done, had a difficult time managing it. They all face it. We all face it.
Yeah.
And we face it and we get through it. But it's the aftermath, is the processing of it that comes later, that is the difficult thing.
Right. So, Kia, for you to overcome your fears, do you have some tools that you can share with us so people can practice this and feel better?
Oh, I'm a coach. I always have tools in my toolbox. Okay. And especially right now, it's really important because I think a lot of people are afraid for different reasons, just in society
In general.
in general. And so I think one of the biggest things to do is to first determine whether this is an indicator that you can harness to make you better, or and realizing that like nothing grows in a comfort zone. So identifying your situation of, are you stuck in a comfort zone and this fear is of the unknown and it's challenging you to step forward, and how you can use that to propel yourself, right? Or is it coming from a place of, wounding that we talked about earlier? And
Mhm.
once you know that, then you know which tools you need to work with. So from there, I would say number one best tool, I think, is going to be journaling. My favorite thing, get it out of you. Because we store it in our body, right? And in our mind, our thoughts create. So whatever thoughts you're thinking is creating the feeling, that how you felt, the racing heart. I felt that many times too, a lot of times in the military, the racing heart, or say you have a relationship and something bad happens. Sometimes you'll feel it in your stomach. Your stomach will drop out. So you'll feel an indication in your body, right? Somatic work. So look into somatic work. That will help you with the processes of the sensations in your body. Some people can do exercise. I am a huge walker. I love to go for a walk. If the walls are closing in on me for any situation, so to speak, I know I need to get outside and I need to journal about it. I need to get it out of my mind. I also have a support system. Community is incredibly important. Don't isolate. A lot of people, when they start getting fearful, they start isolating. Do not isolate. Get into community. Start talking to friends and family that you trust, because you can't trust all of them. So
Right.
or let me just say, you can't, that's true, but sometimes you can't talk to everybody about everything. So knowing
Correct.
who you can go to and talk to is going to be important. And getting that support from your peer group, your family, is going to be really important. Moving your body. Somatic techniques are incredibly helpful. Affirmations are incredibly helpful with managing with mental fear, right? Understanding what kind of fear, like if it's imposter syndrome, it's knowing the affirmations for that. And I'm not saying affirmations are just going to fix you. They're not. They're just one of the tools that you would
Right.
use, because a lot of times, especially if it's core wound related, there's programming, right? And think of yourself like a computer. You've been programmed, and this is coming up because of that. So you have to rewrite the program, and affirmations help to rewrite the program. As well as I like to, I believe in the theta state and reprogramming as you're falling asleep or waking up in the morning, or both, or repetitive programming. So I like to listen to subliminal programming. I listen to the whole thing first so I can make sure there's nothing in there weird, right? While I'm awake. And then I determine, okay, I can fall asleep to this. And you do that for a minimum 90 days. I find that like 3 to 6 months works best for
Right.
reprogramming work.
Yes.
Not just 90 days.
No.
So that's going to be something you're going to do as well. Get a coach, get a coach, a mentor, a therapist. Get on meds if you have to. I prefer holistic types of therapies, but sometimes, and I have in my life taken, like when I had postpartum, I had to take some meds to help me get out of it. And I had to release any shame from needing that help through that time period.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there's so many tools at your disposal. I love a good coach. That's probably one of my favorites. You can get a coach to help you with somatic work. You can get a coach to help you heal your childhood wounds, your attachment style. I mean, there's so many coaches out there that are really helpful and really care about you and want to see you. So any and all of those things will help you to be able to push through fear. But the number one thing is facing it. And once you
Yes.
face it one time, you'll start to build the confidence that you can face things. And then it's like yoga, right? The more you do a thing and you show up for yourself and you prove to yourself that you can do this thing, then it's like when you started a new job, or my first day in boot camp. I was terrified. I was so scared. But by the end of boot camp, I was crying and sad to leave it. So the more you push through your fears and you face them, the more you learn how to hone your fear. Because once you can regulate those triggers with somatic work, then you can think, like you said earlier, and go, okay, I'm feeling fear. Oh, this fear is like checking in with yourself, this fear is telling me that I'm unsafe. I left my drink on the bar and went to the bathroom, and now I'm afraid to pick it up and drink it.
Right.
I'm afraid. I'm not going to drink that drink.
Exactly.
Justin, I got into this Uber. I just saw this on social media. This girl did a
Me
video.
too. Oh
I'm
my
like, I got
God.
it. I'm in this Uber and I feel weird. This guy's making me feel weird. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I need to jump out of this car. You know what I mean? Like, you got to
Right.
decide if the fear is a message, is a signal to keep you safe, or is the fear your own way of keeping yourself stuck?
Kia, now that you mentioned, because I'm gonna give you the tools of a more like for something major, like for example, that you touched the subject about the girl in the Uber.
Mm-hmm.
For women out there, and for children out there, and for people out there that they will encounter things that you never imagined, especially like these days. The first thing, if they kidnap you, the first thing, yes, you're gonna go in panic attack and everything. You are like in distress, but also learn. Just like when you go into exercise, just learn that if something happens to you like that, calm first. Like if you feel like this girl in the Uber, she feel that she was like feeling weird. So you have to listen to your body. You have to listen to yourself, because right there, fear is telling you, jump out of the car. Fear is telling you, move away. Or the intuition also plays a big role in there. The intuition tells you, don't go there. Don't go there. And you don't listen to that and you go there and things happen. So when you're in a extreme situation, you should train yourself, even nothing is going to happen to you, train yourself for a difficult moment. So for you to be able to always be not in alert, but have a mind that you can be aware of your surroundings. Because sometimes we get out from the supermarket with the phone, or we get out from the car with the phone, and we're not checking around what's going on. And things happen in just seconds. What happens to me happens in seconds. In seconds, I was in the trunk of the car, and I didn't know what was gonna happen to me. So for women and children and mothers to teach the kids to be aware of their surroundings, to listen to their bodies when they feel fear or when they are in danger. Because fear is a very good tool, but also fear can be something that you need to manage. Like fear, you need to manage that to be able to, go in this in this planet the way it is right now. That a lot of people have fear for everything, and I understand that. But also, we need to be calm to be able to see what we can do about the situation that we're going through.
I think in fact, I mean, that's a huge part of survival mode, right? It's like
Yes,
when so for example, going back to my childhood, at I was afraid, but I wasn't like in panic. You know what I mean? Like
yes.
I was calm all the time because you know why? I was assessing. And that's what you do. You're assessing the environment. Also, I grew up in Philadelphia, right? In the
So,
city.
so your fear makes you silent, like you was quiet,
Because I was watching.
right?
Because like I said earlier, you had to observe you had to read the room. Okay, like
Exactly,
you had
exactly,
to be able to see what was going on so you could decide how you needed to be in order to
exactly.
keep yourself safe. That is survival mode, right?
Yeah,
So that, in a way, it's using your fear. So you're afraid. It's a decision. It's a decision that you're going to survive.
yes,
So then you have to calm yourself down.
exactly.
You have to observe, and you have to do what's necessary in order to survive. That's why you hear essay survivors will often say that they did what they needed to do to survive. You, in your kidnap situation, did what you needed to do to survive. If you panicked and freaked out, you would not have survived,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the
Yes,
natural instinct is to panic.
yeah.
But at some point you have to, and like I said, I grew up in the city of Philadelphia. I did not grow up, well, when I went to private school, I grew up in the country. But my hometown, I did not grow up in like white picket fences. I grew up in the city. In the city, you need to pay attention to your surroundings. That's part of your life. So a lot of people, like you, when I went to the country, people didn't lock their doors. Like people didn't have the same hyper vigilance, I would say, as you
Mm-hmm.
gain when you live in a place where you do have to watch your back when you're walking around. So that's the environment that I grew up in. And so I've carried that on to my life. And I think a lot of military people are the same way, because when you go to war, you have to pay attention
To
to your
everything.
surroundings. You have to pay attention to everything. But I think that's like survival mode. And being able to overcome fear is being a survivor.
Yes. So Kia, we are 53 minutes right now. Times fly, and I think we can do another episode later on this, because right now, remember, I was talking about depression inside of PTSD. Now I just feel in is we need to talk about fear more. So I'm gonna be doing a lot of podcasts, and we're gonna talk about fear, and I'm gonna bring people with different backgrounds, with tools and everything to help people to know how to survive, because we all survive every single day, but we also need to be smart to know how to survive and be able to be here, present in this moment, to be able to overcome anything that happens. Things can happen in any time. So you have to be ready.
It's so true. You have to stay. One of my favorite YouTubers says, "Stay ready so you don't have to get ready," and that is
Exactly.
so true.
It's true. So, Kia, thank you so much to be on Unbreakable Life with Glory, the bilingual podcast. It was an honor to have you here tonight. And can you please, before we go, tell everybody who is Kia and where they can find you?
Well, I am the creator and host of the Female Veterans Podcast and Hot Topics Live podcast. I am the founder of Magnum Opus Multimedia. I am a pinup published in 7 magazines so far. And I am a coach for London Real Academy, where I've coached over 1,000 people to success in our multiple programs that we offered there. And right now I'm teaching people how to manage their digital assets. So I'm a jack of all trades. I do a lot of things. It's my ADHD. and it helps me feel peaceful and happy to try to help people. So if you want to reach me, the best thing to do is to find me on Instagram. You can find me at Kiativity. That's like Kia, like the car, and the word positivity fused together. You can find me at the Female Veterans Podcast on Instagram and at Hot Topics Live Podcast on Instagram. If you want to see more of me because you were feeling me today, you can go over to Hot Topics Live Podcast on YouTube and subscribe and set your notifications so you know when I come live. I come live a few times a month, but I never know when. So you have to set your notifications or just watch anytime and leave me a comment there. I read all my comments and eventually I will answer them all too for now because there's not tons and tons yet. But that's how you can reach me. And I hope to connect with you.
And also, I have all her information in the description below. So anything you want to know, you're going to have it right there. And also, if you're just a little bit lazy to not find it, you can also contact me and I can contact you with her. So, Kia, thank you so much to be here. And I'm going to close the show and I see you there. Bye bye. Hi, what happened here? Hold on. I just forgot to even to remove you. Now, oh, thank you, Jorge, to be here. He's one of our fans for a long time. Every time we do podcasting, he's always here. Thank you so much. I love you so much for you to be here. And Lily, thank you so much, my dear. I love you. I hope you feel wonderful and thank you so much. So we just come to the final moments of this episode today. I was a little bit nervous today because I just kind of coming back from 1 year of not doing any podcast. So you forgot a lot of stuff and you get nervous, and then later on you get used to. And that's what I'm doing right now. Like I said, I had fear to come here today, but I have to overcome it and come and do it. Like I have fear when I launched my book that last year. I had a lot of fear to launch that book. And I was like, no, I don't want to do anything. But I write it for a purpose. And also I read a lot. And the other day I have this book that is from Angels. It's Angels Numbers 101. And I opened the book just like that when I was like, organizing my office. And I open in one of the numbers and say, we give you a mission, why you are not doing it. And it's like, oh my God, this is real. I need to start doing this because for me to write that book, it was a big deal for me. So it's time to work on and help people to feel better. So anyway, my name is Gloria Londono. I'm a life coach, a spiritual coach. I help people to heal traumas. I also help people to overcome fear. And very, very soon, I'm going to come with a program where you can practice and learn about fear. And I will give you some tools that I used when I was Pinup that I know is going to be very good for you from now until generations to come. Anyway, thank you so much to be in Unbreakable Life with Glory. the Bilingual Podcast, and I see you next time. Bye bye. Ciao, ciao.